So for this month, we're doing women's history, and we're also doing women's empowerment. So it's kind of like this hybrid. Because, of course, all month we want to reflect on just historical women in history, women doing these amazing things.
Yeah.
But also women's empowerment, because we got Women's Conference weekend. And actually, that's this weekend, too. It's going to be a really big hoopla hurrah all weekend long.
Oh, okay.
But the emphasis is just making sure to highlight women in the community that are making an impact, and also women of influence. And so therein, therefore, is how my beloved, beautiful friend... Let me call and see if she got time to come do this.
That is too generous
Yeah.
a description when it comes to me. That's I feel very honored. So thank you.
We're honored to have you, so thank you. So women's empowerment, what does it mean to you? And what historical or current day women inspire you?
So for me, women's empowerment is basically enriching the lives of others, especially women. You know, uplifting one another, whether it's through education, if it's through resources, whether it's just being an ear to just listen, helping one another get to the next stage or to the next level. For me, that's empowerment. In terms of just women who have really impacted me in a very positive way, I'll start with my mom. My mom is like the sweetest, the nicest, most loving person I know. And so my smile, my joy, it comes from what she instilled in me as a young child to be happy through anything. You know, along the way, wanting to ultimately become an attorney, being able to practice the way that I do. I will tell you, the legal community here is just incredible. So many women have uplifted me and allowed me to just be really just transform and evolve into a stellar trial lawyer. I'm not afraid to say it. From the judges on our bench, whether it's state court, superior court, to our local attorneys here in this bar, that camaraderie, that sisterhood, all of that is what inspires me. And so to kind of just name drop people, I just can't do it. It's too many people. I don't want to forget anybody, but everybody's journey is a little different. And that journey has definitely been poured into me and enriched me, and has allowed me to enrich others and allowed me to really just advance through my career, and I'm paying it forward as they paid it forward with me.
That's the name of the game, right?
Yeah,
and I love
absolutely.
the word that you use when you say sisterhood, because sisterhood is such a critical thing for women of all colors. You know, when we think about just the culture that we live in, we fight.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning we have to fight for growth. We have to fight our way into opportunities in many a case, and not fight one another, but literally in some cases, systemically, we have to fight.
Oh, yeah.
Oftentimes people just have no idea what that journey looks like for us, and the support that we have around us is a critical part of that journey. When you've got those women around you that tell you, you know what, keep going. And, or, you know what, been there, done that, you're going to be fine, right? It's always encouraging to know. And most importantly, the love. That love, I think, is something that's priceless, because family isn't always just blood. And our sisters that are around us helping us is so essential and so critical. And as you mentioned, paying it forward is a big part of that. That's a part of what we do as well, is because we've been blessed, as we say here at TAB, we're going to be a blessing. And it's the same thing. Our younger sisters coming up need all the support they can get. They need all the love they can get. They need as many examples as they can get. And so you've demonstrated that. And that paying it forward is something that's going to be rewarding down the line as you continue, because you'll be able to see the fruit of that labor, the fruit of that love, and our community needs it, because we know that in order for us to thrive, we all have to do our part. So just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Now I got to ask you about the journey of moving into law, right? Like that, and everyone knows as a child, you always think, well, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. And both of those, you pause halfway through life and you say, it's a lot of school. That's a lot, right? So
absolutely.
Tell us about what motivated you to pursue law, and then how did you make it to where you are? What kind of challenges did you face? And then also, after giving us all that, what kind of encouragement do you have for others that may be interested in pursuing that career field as well?
So where do I begin? Let me tell you that I had no idea coming up what a lawyer was. When I was a young child, my mom used to say, and my dad used to say it as well, I talk a lot. And I often questioned a lot of things, a lot of decisions that were made, you know, starting at the tender age of 5. I just believe that, just because you say it, I feel like there should be open door to maybe kind of question or to say, well, could we do something different? And my mom would say in response, as I'm about to get my whooping, that you ought to be a lawyer. And so as I was coming up, I really started to kind of look into what does that even mean? And as I grew to understand what that profession was, I realized it was something that I was very interested in because as I understood it, particularly when I achieved high school, it was an opportunity to help people who particularly cannot help themselves because they don't have the knowledge or the skill. Some people just don't speak well, or some people don't know how to communicate how they're feeling or what the law is on a particular situation. And so I don't have a problem with standing before someone and speaking. And I certainly understand and appreciate helping others because, my dad is retired Air Force now, but at the time I was in a military family. We moved nearly every 3 years. So service was always deeply embedded into both my brother and I. So I understood that, hey, whatever I do, I want to make sure that like my dad, like my mom, I give back to our country in some way. And so being a lawyer also was not just helping others, but it was also a way to make it better. So when I decided to go to law school, I had that already implanted in me. If you look at my background, a lot of what I did in law school by way of internships were, whereas my classmates were doing these super lucrative law firm positions, I was choosing internship opportunities that were for nonprofits, opportunities where I got to represent someone in terms of not as a lawyer, but as a law student, help research, help do responses to discovery on racial discrimination cases. I, for one summer, worked for Southern Poverty Law Center for the Youth Justice Project in Jackson. So I had all those opportunities that were extended to me because of that passion and that love, but also because of my work ethic. That is something else that my parents instilled with me. Now, I don't want to make it seem like that path was easy. It wasn't. Along the way, I had a tendency when people would ask, well, what do you plan to do with your life? Where is it that you see yourself? I would say, I want to be a lawyer. Well, from people who don't know me, have never met me, I'm just at the cuffs of 5 feet tall, and my voice is very high pitched. And imagine what that was like when I'm in my teens. Oh, it was squeaky. It was just not very cute. And so when people think of lawyers, they have in their mind what that looks like. And for me, I in my mind had made up that I was going to be a lawyer, irrespective of what people tried to tell me a lawyer is supposed to look like, how they're supposed to sound, how they're supposed to move about. I dismissed all of that. And I was able to do that because of what my parents put in me and my teachers and my friends who were in support of me. And so, being able to pursue that, you've got to have the confidence in knowing whatever has been placed in you, it's for you. And not everybody's going to share your vision. Not everybody's going to see that potential or that dream. But as long as you do, and as long as you know that God put that in you and that you have that support somewhere, and you may not have that support somewhere. Sometimes you are that support. Go for it. The worst that could happen is that the door closes. But the thing about doors is they're more than one. When I was in law school, and I don't tell many people this, my colleagues don't even know this, I nearly failed out my first semester. I had never done anything as difficult as law school. I didn't have any lawyers as a point of reference in my family. I'm a first-generation lawyer in my family. So me learning what it takes to be a model student in law school, that in and of itself there was a learning curve. A lot of my peers, they came from families of lawyers, judges, professionals. They knew people already in the institution who could help guide them. I didn't necessarily feel initially that I had that guidance or I had anywhere where I could turn. In my class of 192, only 13 of us were African American when I first started. So to just kind of put that in perspective, we were all kind of fighting the fight in a way to kind of figure out how do we do this. And so having that experience of nearly failing, I just realized, hey, you got to open your mouth and you just got to start asking for the help. You're not going to get here on your own. You've got to, voice that to your teacher. So after, I saw my first semester grades and I almost made academic probation, I said, oh no, this ain't my life. This is not my testimony. So I went and sat down with all my professors. I'm sure they found me very harassing, but by the end of it, our class sizes were about 100. They knew my name because I was always harassing them because I wanted to make sure that that experience never repeated. And, from there, I just always made a point, and I share this with anybody, don't for a second believe that when you see somebody that you think you want to model, that they got there on their own. They did not. It is very rare. And if they did get there on their own, I really would like to know this person. Because to say that not a single person helped uplift you or improve the quality of your life by, lifting you up, that's just not a real thing. There is no way that I could have my own office. There is no way that I could be a lawyer at this time. There is no way that I could have ascended to the different offices that I've held here locally in various civic groups without the help of other people. So for me, yes, the path and the roadway was hard. There were some failures along the way. But if you just keep your eyes focused on what it is you're trying to do not be too proud to ask for the help. Use the help that is given to you and understand that whatever you receive, you've got to pay it forward. Like I've said before, you always want to help others. Do not shut yourself off. You too can do the things that you really want to do in life.
Love it, love it. So we are going to have a viewership of young lawyers because what you just shared with them is just critical. Number one, identify what you want to do. Number two, expect help. Expect to need help. As you just mentioned, I'm with you. If there was any person on this earth, right, human form, that succeeded on their own in its entirety, I would like to meet them too. I've yet to meet a person that way. And as you just mentioned, people will always come across your path who are there specifically to just help make sure that you keep going and to give you that support you need. And you said something that was very interesting. You started out with your class of 192 with 13 African Americans. And by the time you were at the end, there was 100 left, right? That's half. It's been chopped in half just during the duration of your education, right? Which is a very astounding thing to see that many of the students, unlike yourself, did not finish that program. Now, of course, things change. People change their minds as they're going along, right? Which is perfectly okay. But to speak to the tenacity of what you've accomplished, I think is a really, really, really big deal.
Thank you.
And congratulations for that. And it's the cutest thing, literally, when you just said, I'm barely tiptoeing into 5 feet, right? And yet you walk like a giant. And that's a very powerful thing. And people oftentimes don't understand even the psychological aspects of overcoming and achieving. Education is one component of it, but I think what you mentioned is very, very, very poignant to what we're talking about when you think about what type of inner challenges we might face and or other people's perceptions, right? You just mentioned if you allowed your frame to hinder you, if you allowed your frame, letting them go on by, if you allowed your frame to hinder you, we wouldn't have you here today, right? And so I think that's just an amazing thing to still pursue in spite of whatever culture, society, or whomsoever else thinks we should look like, we should sound like, and we hear that all the time. And just having the strength and resilience to push through that is inspiring in itself. So
thank you.
The families, the people that you touch, we know. Thank you for what you do, and even in our community. From your perspective, what impact does the knowledge, which you mentioned earlier, just having the knowledge of the judicial system, understanding your rights, which is huge, and also resource accessibility?
Oh, yeah.
What's important about these things to make sure that they're present in our community?
Oh, yeah. Well, for starters, knowledge, as cliche as it sounds, it's power. It instills esteem, confidence, but also it gives you the ability when you are confronted with a situation to critically analyze it to make decisions that perhaps will save you from being in the crosshairs of the legal process. So that's the importance of the knowledge of the judicial process and knowing what your rights are. Now, sometimes it does happen where even if you have all the information in the world, your rights can be violated. And that is it is disheartening, it's upsetting, and that's what people like myself are here for, attorneys. We're here to fight those fights for you. And I would say to that when you are confronted with a situation where you feel that someone has violated your rights in some way, shape, or form, consult with an attorney. Don't take that on your own. Get that legal perspective and opinion because it's important. We've been trained to do this and we know. With respect to just overall, what impact does it have? I will tell you that for me, I started a Know Your Rights campaign about 5-6 years ago, but it's geared towards our teens ages 11 to 18. I did that because one case in particular, I represented a 14-year-old child who was charged as an adult, which meant that they had to go through the adult process in Superior Court. The young man was given a chance on probation, and then unfortunately, he got rearrested. Judge basically laid the hammer down and said, look, I gave you a chance and you came back to me on a new charge. I don't have any more chances to give. That young man went to prison for 16 years. While he was in prison, he was assaulted. And the family, I believe, were blackmailed into trying to send money. It became a very controversial thing that happened here in the community. I don't want to see young people going into the system. You know, the intention of knowing this and having that accessibility to these resources, such as information about, well, what are your rights, such as what are the purposes and obligations of the court, knowing what resources are available through the court, because maybe you are a victim, maybe you are somebody who has been in a situation and you're not quite sure what can you do if law enforcement is not necessarily able to intervene. In what ways can the court help you? All of that is very important and to hopefully help people ideally not to have to come through the crosshair of the court system, but if you do, you are instilled or have that access in order to take advantage of those opportunities within the court to bring some resolution or closure to whatever that situation is. So all of that is extremely important. I commend all my colleagues and others in the community who are doing things to address those deficiencies and making sure that those resources are made available. It's hard work, but it's necessary work. And I'm very hopeful that if all of us continue to align and provide those services or provide those trainings or to share that information, that we'll see less of us in the court systems and more of us doing great things.
I love it. I love it. And it's so essential.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We have the representation to be the voice, not just the voice of reason, but also just the voice to represent underrepresented people. As you just mentioned, just hearing the story of a young man, 14 years old, who 16 years of his life changed, right?
Absolutely.
And we know there's many a case like that we never hear of. I have a brother that was 16 when he was convicted and was charged as an adult and had to serve a life sentence, 25 years. He is scheduled to be released this summer. He will be quite aged, right? And the underrepresentation is at the core of that. At that time, with my mother being deceased, my family didn't, at that time, have the availability or accessibility. You're talking about years and years ago.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to fight for that situation. And so to your point, just being a part of that process, I think, is a beautiful thing to help ensure that individuals are treated fairly.
Absolutely.
Represented fairly, and that they're educated about just having rights and knowing what those rights are. So thank you. That just touched my heart when you shared that story, because it just took me straight into just family dynamics and things like that I've lived through and seen. And so encouragement, what kind of encouragement, as we're talking about empowerment, right?
Yeah.
and women's history, trailblazers that have come along, and we all know them, we love them.
Absolutely.
And our women that are making history right now, yourself being included, are inspiring. And so to hear from you, for our viewers that are listening and watching all over, both locally and all over online and all those good things, what words of encouragement of life, of encouragement do you have for them as we kind of think about just balancing life, right?
Absolutely.
And really, really having strong faith, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of faith to make it. What do you want to say to them about focus and just living your best life?
Live. It's just that simple. You have a choice. You can stay, within the lines. You can be comfortable. You can grow complacent. You can always take the safe side, or you can live and really pursue what is heavy in your spirit. For me, I've taken risk. It was scary. It was very scary. You wonder, well, what happens if it doesn't go the way that I want it to go? And it's a frightening thought, but you cannot live your life in fear. In fact, fear is not of God. My advice is live in a way that you don't want to look back and regret that you did not give yourself the chance. Love yourself enough to say, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. I can do this. And if it doesn't go the way I want it to, I at least grew. I took the chance. And I can only see the possible growth from that and the resilience that you grow. I believe that Michelle Obama talks about, failure, it's a growing experience, but it's also an opportunity to build resilience. And I don't see any disadvantage in that. But the disadvantage in not taking that chance is you looking back 10, 15, 20 years from now saying, man, I wonder what if. And, I made a commitment to myself not too long ago, because I'm always having to make new commitments because you're constantly evolving as a person, you're changing. You start looking back over your life and you start wondering, what's next and what is it that you really desire to do? And for me, I make choices, goodness, almost daily, where I'm saying, I'm really putting myself out there. I put my big toe in the water. Now I'm all the way dunked in. And I'm going to see everything that I set out to do through. And I'm going to be proud regardless of how that comes out because I took the chance. So live. That's my advice.
Live your best life.
Yes.
Live your life. It's yours, right?
Absolutely.
And that in itself, I think, is one of the biggest hindrances that many people face in this life is the desire to do just all sorts of extraordinary things. Mm-hmm. And as you just mentioned, I truly believe vision and inspiration comes from on high. It comes from God. And if He gave it to you, you're able. We're enabled. We're empowered to do these things. But many a time, we have to have those pep talks too, right? With ourselves on a regular basis. But you said something strong, and we hear this all the time. You never want to look back on your life and have the shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Now, in some cases, maybe not right now, but later.
Okay, yeah.
But never look back and say, I should have done X, Y, and Z. And I think many people do live with that moment repetitively. I think once you get to that place later on in life, I would wonder, dare I say, if that's something you ever even get over, if you have that level of regret. And I believe that we're given one life. You only live it once.
Absolutely.
Pursue what is important to you. Pursue what matters. There's a reason that burning desire hits you, right?
Yes.
And so that encouragement is just really inspiring. Women in history wouldn't be women in history if they did not pursue that calling. They didn't pursue that passion. They wouldn't be historical women in many cases, right?
Absolutely.
Extraordinary requires doing the extra, right? Being different. And so that just, hopefully, I know will bless not just our younger sisters. We definitely want them to get this message, but also women of all ages, just to really pursue what is in your heart. Regardless of who understands, regardless of who likes or doesn't like it, regardless of how popular or unpopular it may be, because those are the moments, those are the defining moments in our lives that separate us from the ordinary. And that's where that extra gets added. And then you become what? Extraordinary. Then a few years later, we're talking about it, just like Michelle Obama, right? Because she blazed the trail. Her name has come up several times in women's interviews because she's such a profound leader. And it's because of that resilience.
And to future lawyers, know that she didn't pass her bar exam the first time. Someone who is very near and dear to my heart, my best friend, She's an attorney in the Metro, and I will tell you, she did not pass the bar the first time. Her practice, she had a dream about her practice. She started with just her and her aunt, and her office is now 6 people strong. She's one of the premier personal injury attorneys in the city of Atlanta. And, you know, it goes back to, I see the drive of so many women around me. And that's another thing I want to bring up. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You surround yourself with the people that motivate and inspire you. You know, sometimes I have to remind myself when I see so many of my friends just excelling and just breaking barrier after barrier, ceiling after ceiling, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am not living or doing enough. And then I have to remind myself, when you surround yourself with extraordinary people, anticipate extraordinary things are going to happen, and that if they can do it, you are capable of doing it too. And the wonderful and beautiful thing is that it's not a competition. It is truly us loving and uplifting each other. So every time they're shattering a ceiling, they're letting me know that, hey, you can do it too. Just keep pushing forward, keep fighting. And that's, you know, again, that's part of the journey, is that sometimes you are going to feel like you are not accomplished enough. You haven't done enough. You are just a slacker, or you're not smart enough, or you're not pretty enough, or your skill and your talent is just not there, because you see so much excellence around you all the time that it distorts the reality. But the reality is that you cannot compare or measure yourself to other people. You have to remind yourself that you yourself are one of a kind, and that if you see someone striving, don't compete against them. Don't be jealous or envious of them. Ask them what they're doing. Sit with them, follow them, grow and learn from them, because I'm telling you, you would be surprised the people and the love that they will give you when you start to surround yourself with them and you ask for that help. People will help.
What scripture drives you?
So there's a lot of different scriptures I look at, but lately I've been looking at Psalm 37, because it talks about, you know, loving God, doing the will of God, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. But also that scripture talks about haters, evildoers. It talks about just, you know, you may see people who are doing things that are malicious or maybe hurtful to you, but they appear on the surface to be prospering. You just have to remember, at the end of the day, you cannot focus on that. You have to stay on the path. You got to keep your eyes on God and let God handle that. And if you just leave it to Him, He's going to give you the desires of your heart, you know, trusting in Him. So, like, for me, that is something that I'm steadily having to remind myself, especially in this season. This is a rough season, but it's a season that I feel that God has prepared me for, and I'm just ready to meet it head on, you know? He may not necessarily move the mountain, but He's going to hold my hand. He's going to navigate and help me travel up that mountain and give me everything I need in order to conquer it.